Welcome. Tap in to another episode of Touchdown Labs, and we're going to go through a post combine mock draft with you guys. A lot of risers this weekend, a lot of sleepers, a lot of players that fell down that were touted to be higher draft prospects. We're going to talk about all that today. I want to talk to you guys about some of the needs that teams have, what they're going through in their draft process, if they're a general manager of a team, and what the discussions are going to happen behind the scenes when it comes to picking some of these players. And I'll go through with you guys if I was every single GM on an NFL team, and we will go through a full first round mock with you guys today for this week's episode of Touchdown Labs. I'm excited. I'm excited to bring this to you guys, and really, we'll start with the Tennessee Titans here on the clock at number one. So you'll see I picked Abdul Carter. What's the reason behind this? Why did I start with Abdul Carter? I started with Carter because he's the best player in the draft. Titans have the share of holes to fill, and they're going to decide to take the best player available. I don't think quarterback is a position that they're going to take with Shadur Sanders or Cam Ward. That'll likely happen later on in the draft with teams like Cleveland and possibly the Oakland Raiders, even the New York Giants. They might be open to a quarterback there as well. But what I will say is that Abdul Carter is 1A and 1B when it comes to the best player in the draft. Some folks might have Travis Hunter as number one, but this is a game changing edge rusher. And the question that the GM on the Titans is going to have is, am I going to come back and draft this high again in the next couple of years? And I don't think that they're one quarterback away from contending in their division. And I also don't think that a quarterback is going to be able to succeed there. They're probably going to have a little bit more production than Will Levi, but not enough for them to guarantee that they're going to have success over this rookie contract and be able to build a Super Bowl winning team. So let's just say the Tennessee Titans get better and they'll find their QB of the future in a future draft here in the upcoming years. Now, coming down to the Cleveland Browns, who are very interested in getting a quarterback, they like to shed the salary of Deshaun Watson, who is having his second Achilles tear. What it looks like will be a lengthy recovery process for him. So they need a quarterback that's going to be cheap, and he's going to be cheap for the future to come on a rookie deal. We're going to go ahead and take Cam Ward. Cam Ward is, in my opinion, the best quarterback in this year's draft when it comes to his measurables, but when it comes to the it factor, I would draft Shadur Sanders. I think there's a conversation to be had there with his father, what he brings to the table, how he's prepared for the pros, how his father's kind of led him along the way. And he's been successful at every single level from Jackson State going to Colorado. So there is a conversation there to be had, but I think, Cleveland wants the sure thing. They don't want more drama. So they don't want another, you know, glaring need at quarterback, and they're safe with picking Cam Ward and getting that cheap production on that rookie deal. Now, when we go to the New York Giants here, they're going to have to do their best in terms of making up for Saquon Barkley, letting him go to the Eagles, and kind of getting this fan base really, really down with how they operated in the offseason last year. Didn't pay their star player, and their star player ended up going to the Super Bowl. So, how do they fix this? I think they do this by drafting a quarterback. I think on the weekend, a lot of talks were around Matthew Stafford, what Stafford was going to do, if he was going to not re sign with the Rams. The Giants had a lot of interest along with the Raiders. He went on a skiing trip there with Tom Brady, and trust me, that's not by coincidence. He does end up on a restructured deal back with the Rams. Doesn't look like he wanted to uproot his family and go to another franchise just to go 7-10. Rams are really, really close to getting to the Super Bowl last year and actually beating the Eagles. So, with that in mind, I think the New York Giants here pick Shadur Sanders and they go quarterback. They solve that problem. They have a tier one wide receiver with Malik Neighbors. They pair him up and they're able to move forward. Now, going on to the New England Patriots, lots of high rated players left on the board, but they need to help Drake May, and they have a need at tackle, and they have the opportunity here to pick the best offensive lineman and their opinion in the draft. Lots of smoke coming from Daniel Jeremiah on this pick, lots of smoke coming in from the NFL insiders in terms of the Patriots looking at a tackle. So we'll play it safe and pick Will Campbell as being their tackle of the future for Drake May and that team. Now, going on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Center, guard, defensive interior seems to be their top needs. Cornerback, safety, wide receiver, all big needs for them. Um, you know, Cisco has to go into free agency in 2025. Ronald Darby, Montrake Brown, Andrew Wingard, all entering contract years. So they need to bring multiple rookies in to compete with their secondary. Sorry. And when you look at this secondary, that's going to have a lot of players come off the board. Lots of folks would have said, Travis Hunter would have already come off the board here. I will take him off the board. Lots of people would go Mason Graham with the interior needing that help. But I think Travis Hunter can not only help their defense, he can also help their quarterback there that needs a little bit more. They drafted a receiver in the first round last year, and Brian Thomas Jr. extremely successful. But not only can they get a blue chip player at the cornerback position with Travis Hunter, they can also put him at wide receiver for Trevor Lawrence if they come into a pinch. So I'll go ahead and take Travis Hunter. I think it's a no-brainer, guys, when we look at this pick and we're looking at how the board's kind of fallen so far. So Abdul Carter goes first, everyone's consensus best player. Cleveland comes back around, takes a quarterback. They don't want any drama because they have, the Deshaun Watson issue going on right now with his scandal as well as his injury. So they go around and take a safe quarterback. New York has bigger, limelight. Shadur's been linked there. They've been linked to their coach as well. Brian Dable takes a quarterback. He's able to get that dual threat quarterback to add to his system, which already has a wide receiver one. Lots of smoke here about Patriots wanting to go ahead and get a tackle. So we'll give them Will Campbell. Travis Hunter falls down the board as the number one overall prospect coming into the NFL draft in the country. He takes land at number 5 at Jacksonville. I think everyone would be in agreement in terms of how this board was falling, and in terms of Jacksonville taking that corner there, Travis Hunter instead of Mason Graham. Oakland Raiders coming down the clock now. They're a little bit upset that they didn't get their quarterback. They're probably looking for Shadur Sanders to drop here. They missed on Matthew Stafford in free agency. Well, not really free agency, but a contract negotiating period. They have needs at quarterback. They have needs at wide receiver, running back, cornerback, defensive tackle, really all across the board here. So when we look at the best players that are left, Tet McMillan, Mason Graham, Ashton Genty, Luther Burden, lots of players come to mind in terms of who's left in the top 50. 2 late season wins took the Raiders out of the top hunt for a top 5 pick. They probably look back at that now and need it compared to how this board has dropped. And they still need to find a franchise quarterback in the draft or free agency. So that's something Tom Brady is trying to help them to do as a minority owner. Raiders are going to go ahead. They're going to take Mason Graham. Not going to pass up on the interior defensive lineman who I think is one of the best players left on the board. And that's going to bring up the Jets, who are also quarterback needy. They have a share of question marks. Future at quarterback is the most glaring. Can they find a long-term answer in this year's draft? We're definitely going to say they won't do that in round 1. Now, what they do here is interesting. Quarterbacks in need, defensive tackles in need, offensive tackles in need, safeties in need, cornerbacks in need as well. Who do they take? Very, very high. Jahdae Barron. He ran a great 40, had a fantastic workout at the combine, and I think he's climbed himself up just because of the recency bias factor when we say Will Johnson didn't have a workout. Lots of folks can say Will Johnson is a great pick to go there and be that second corner, but it's a kind of what have you done for me right now? And I think with the combine and everyone's recent memory, Jahdae Barron's somebody that can go extremely high in the draft. Carolina Panthers coming up. Who do the Panthers want to take and who do the Panthers need? They need an edge, defensive tackle, wide receiver to help their quarterback, Bryce Young. Primary draft focus should be improving the league's worst defenses. Big bodies need to support Derek Brown, who's an injury, and if he returns, their ineffective pass rush could get a little bit better. So how do they improve their defense and where do they go from here? Daniel Jeremiah has them taking Jalen Walker. I could totally see them doing that. Jalen Walker's a great individual when it comes to defensive line because I think he's an edge rusher at the next level. So we're going to go ahead and say that he is picked. It's quite down this list here. We're going to take Jalen Walker and send him to Carolina. He's from Carolina as well. They're going to take their hometown talent. Now, new coach in town for New Orleans Saints. We have Kellen Moore and Joe Staley, who are the new head coach, OC DC combo going on in the Saints. And what do they do here? How do they add? They can add by, picking the best receiver in the draft. And they have the option to do that with wide receiver being one of their biggest needs. Edge is a need for them as well. They should look for an edge defender early. Chase Young might find a new home in free agency when that starts next week. And they declined the option of first round pick Peyton Turner, and Cameron Jordan is actually turning 36 years old. So I'm making a big argument here that I think the Saints need to go edge. And if that's the case, with him testing so great, let's say they take James Pierce Jr. as the first edge, running a 4-5, having a great combine, some potential off the field issues, but this is where we take risks, guys. Shamar Stewart's going to be a risk taking at number 9 as well, who didn't test as great as James Pierce did over the weekend. We're going to say that Saints see something in him. Their defensive coordinator definitely does, and he is the first edge off of our board in this year's draft. Things are going to be a little bit different, guys. I'm explaining you my thought process here as well. Him running a 4-5, he can be a demon there beside Cam Jordan, who can teach him what he needs to do in his first couple of years in the league there before he retires. Now, going on to the Chicago Bears. The Bears need to devote their offense into upgrading for Caleb Williams. I think Banks has the skill set to play tackle. They can go Genty here as well and pair him up, but I don't think they'll do that in terms of what they have already with their running back room. And they need guard, they need center, they need tackle, they need edge, they need wide receiver. He needs to take the blame, Caleb Williams, for taking so many sacks, but their line needs an upgrade as well. So I'm going to say they're extremely interested in picking up on the offensive line. And when it comes to players, Josh Simmons' medical graded out really well this weekend in terms of what Ian Rappaport came out with. So we're going to go ahead and say they're going to take Josh Simmons with their 10th pick because he is slated to come back fully healthy. And he will be working out on his pro day, which is coming up in a month. So that'll likely push his draft stock up even more. And if that's the case and he has a good workout in Ohio State, he'll likely end up going this high and a little bit higher than Banks, to be honest. Now, moving on to the 49ers, they need guard, tackle, defensive line. Also seeing they need cornerback help, defensive tackle, edge, anything really in the secondary, linebacker as well. The 49ers, they need more depth behind Nick Bosa. And I'm expecting to see some turnover in their secondary. Contracts for Tre'Davious Ward and Isaac Yiadom are expiring. Tre'Davious Ward is somebody who's going to command quite a bit in the defensive backs market. So let's see if they can go pick up a cornerback or defensive tackle here, somebody to help them on their defense, even a potential linebacker. Now, the conversation to be had here is Jihad Campbell could go this high. Will Johnson could be another scheme fit for them as well at corner, since we just talked about them having to pay Tre'Davious Ward. And there's people like Mike Green, Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan. There's a bunch of guys still left on here. Michael Williams, Shamar Stewart. You know what? We're going to take a risk here being the 49ers, and I think Stewart fits their system. He's a Myles Garrett comparison. Maybe they can get something out of him with Robert Saleh coming back as DC. So let's take a risk and say that they're going to pick up an edge, and they're going to pick up the edge that they want. When we're looking at Daniel Jeremiah's draft here, they're taking Mike Green, and they're taking Will Johnson. And Will Johnson's still on the board, but I think Shamar Stewart could potentially have a little bit more to offer. Maybe Will Johnson runs slow at his pro day. We haven't seen it yet, but we'll take some risks and we'll go from there. This is a Cowboys fan's dream. Tet McMillan, Ashton Genty still on the board, Tyler Warren, Malachi Starks. You have your number one linebacker here, Jihad Campbell. Mike Green's here as well, extremely high on edge. Will Johnson, the cornerback, Walter Nolan. There's an extreme amount of options. And I think we have to run to the board and run and hand in our card for Genty. I know we need a wide receiver too, but this is somebody who we would take the production from day one. I don't think 12 is that high of a pick. And from what we've seen in free agency with Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, they are two guys that can turn teams around. They can take a lot of pressure off their quarterback, and they make it so their quarterback doesn't have to play a perfect game. Right now in Dallas, Dak Prescott does have to play a perfect game, and I think touting the ball to Genty about 20 times a game there will help him out quite a bit. Now, Miami Dolphins are on the clock here. They need help at guard and tackle, and they need help badly. So we're going to say they're going to go a little bit early and pick Tyler Booker. Tyler Booker's a fantastic pick for them. He's going to be a rock in the middle of the Alabama offensive line, and he's going to provide much needed depth there that can play all around. Now, who's left in terms of what's going on for our best players and where we are for the top 50, right? We got quite a bit of people on our board that are still here that haven't been picked. Tyler Warren's coming in at Daniel Jeremiah's number 5, Colson Loveland number 7, and then we have players like, Will Johnson still on the board, Jihad Campbell. There's a lot of players that are left here in terms of how this draft has fallen. And this is what I want you guys to remember. The draft is going to end up falling like this when it comes to draft night. Lots of unknowns are going to happen. Players that aren't chalked up on the board on your big board or your top 50 are going to end up going. And that's what happens draft night, right? A lot of unknowns and unforeseen circumstances with trades could end up popping up and screwing up a lot of people's boards when it comes to how players were going to turn out and turn up when it gets to pick number 14, 20, and 25. So when we have the Colts here, they have a big need at tight end. Tyler Warren is that guy for them. He's been mocked to them on several other mocks for media scouts and other prominent people in the industry as well. And I think Tyler Warren fits extremely well in the Colts. He's going to give Anthony Richardson another shot for a billboard that he can throw to, and that's going to help them in the run game with Jonathan Taylor as well. Atlanta Falcons are on the clock here, and they need wide receiver. They need edge, linebacker, cornerback. They're likely building around a new quarterback right now, and they need to get him some help, right? So they need to have a replacement for free agent pass rusher Matthew Judon, Lorenzo Carter this offseason. We're going to go ahead and have them take Mike Green. With them trading for Judon, they had a need there. They're going to replace that need with a fantastic player with some fantastic value in this draft. So you guys can see Abdul Carter, Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders, Will Campbell. Then we go into Mason Graham, Jade Barron, Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr., Josh Simmons, Shamar Stewart, Ashton Genty, Tyler Booker, Tyler Warren, Mike Green. I think it's pretty fair in terms of how this mock has fallen and what these teams need, what the buzz has been around the NFL, and how this is all kind of going right now. Now, halfway through, now we're on a pick number 16. We are going to go to the Arizona Cardinals. Their biggest needs are edge, defensive tackle, wide receiver, and guard. When it comes to the offensive line, nothing's really left here in terms of players other than Banks. That could be an option. Membu could be a little bit high for them as well. And when we look at defensive line, really what they have left are a lot of players that people would say are top tier defensive tackles in the draft. We have Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon. Harmon's been compared to Chris Jones. So what direction are they going in when it comes to the Cardinals? We're going to say they go defensive tackle. I'm going to say they go ahead and pick up Walter Nolan. He has upside as a pass rusher. I think he'll assist in the run as well. Daniel Jeremiah had them taking Kenneth Grant, more of a one technique, but I think Nolan's too high of a prospect to pass up there for them on their defensive line. Moving on to the Bengals, we have wide receiver, guard, defensive tackle as the top needs. They have issues when it comes to helping Joe Burrow, who almost had an MVP caliber season, and they have pressing needs on both sides of the ball. Focusing on positions early in the draft is going to be great for them. T. Higgins likely leaves in free agency. So with T. Higgins leaving, it's a big glaring guy here, Tet McMillan, who I think could be perfect for them. Wide receiver is one of their biggest needs. And Mike Gesicki's not re-signed yet, so they get a offensive weapon and powerhouse in Tet McMillan, who falls to number 17 in the draft there. Seattle coming up. Seattle needs guard, quarterback, linebacker, defensive tackle, offensive tackles. So they need offensive linemen, they need linebackers, they need help on their D line. And where do we go? Where do we go here? Greg Zabel might be a little bit rich. They need help on their interior offensive line. Um, they also need help on edge linebacker. We're going to take Kelvin Banks. They're going to build for their quarterback for the future. They don't have him yet, but they're going to start to build that offensive line so that when they do get him, he is successful. Now going on to the Bucks, they need edge, linebacker, and defensive back. McMillan went a little bit earlier. He would have been a perfect landing spot there because Chris Godwin is going to become a free agent. So they might take a look at Luther Burden here, who kind of has the same body type. Their biggest needs on offense with guard and wide receiver. So I'm thinking that we just took almost all of the offensive guards off the board or tackles that we had here. Luther Burden is somebody who can be their next Chris Godwin, and they can start that relationship with Baker Mayfield a little bit early and get their number one wide receiver in the draft. Moving on to the Broncos, they have needs at tight end, wide receiver, linebacker, safety, defensive tackle. So we'll start again. Tight end, Tyler Warren's gone. Loveland could be a pick here. Like Sean Payton could take him to help out Bo Nix. And wide receiver could be a pick. Linebacker could be a pick there as well. We still have our top linebacker on the board with Jihad Campbell. So that's an option. And then safety and defensive tackle are there with players that are extremely highly touted. I'm going to go ahead and say they take defensive tackle Kenneth Grant. They need somebody on their defensive line. They have problems right now at their wideout position, and Sean Payton needs to add more weapons. But I wouldn't be surprised here if he goes ahead and makes sure his defense can go ahead and stop the run and go ahead and be successful doing that. Steelers have needs at quarterback, wide receiver, defensive back as well. Art Rooney has said that he prefers bringing back Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, but regardless of which free agent wants to return, they need another young pass rusher, and he should be a part of the team's radar early, whether that be Dart or somebody else there. We don't know how this is going to pan out. Jackson Dart could be an option. Jalen Milroe could be an option there later on in the draft. I don't think they want to go that route, and they want to keep a free agent that's used to their system. So I could see them bringing Russell Wilson back for another year, even though he kind of lost every single game for them in the last part of the season. But with them bringing him back, they need help. How are they going to help? Will Johnson, he's fell. He could be scouts, cornerback number 2 at this point at pick number 21. And this is where we're getting value in the draft, right? We had Jahdae Barron going quite high in the top 10, and now we have Will Johnson, who could be, folks, cornerback 2 compared to Patrick Surtain in some situations going number 21 and helping that Steeler defense kind of continue its success on the back end. Now the Chargers are here at 22. They need a running back, wide receiver, tight end, and edge. I'm going to go ahead and say they take a wide receiver. I was very, very tempted to take a Marion Hampton here, but I still think there's too much value at wide receiver right here at 22 with Ibuka being available. And he's going to be able to help out Justin Herbert and that offense. And with Green Bay coming up, wide receiver is a need there as well. And these receivers are going to start to get plucked off the board. So I think that's why it's important for the Chargers to pick up their guy. And now Green Bay moves on to the clock with needs at center, edge, cornerback. Gerald Alexander is likely to be released, if not traded for a 5th-round pick when the trading window opens next week. They need a bona fide number 1 guy. We just took them off the board, although I say Golden is somebody here who's running extremely fast 40 and pushed himself up into round 1. Do we take him here at Green Bay? Or do we take somebody else around the edge position like Michael Williams? That'll likely be their conversation. Michael Williams versus Matthew Golden. I think Matthew Golden can be that guy for Jordan Love and have them building around the future. I do think they can get somebody like Khalil Mack on the defense in free agency. So let's go ahead and take Matthew Golden. He's another player that I think climbed up a lot of people's stocks this weekend when it comes to the draft. Almost towards the end of the first round here, and we're going to have the Minnesota Vikings take Omarion Hampton. They have a need there at running back, and Omarion Hampton tested extremely well. His measurables are great. His 40 time was amazing. And they have Aaron Jones, who's an aging back that's coming off the contract book this year as well. So they're going to replace that position and have that set up for JJ McCarthy, who's likely their quarterback for the future as he rehabs from injury. The Houston Texans are coming in. They have quite a bit of needs at receiver as well. Tank Dell's knee injury, along with a pending free agent Stephon Diggs, who tore his ACL, and Robert Woods puts a receiver at the top of the priority list for the Texans. And that's why we had Golden go to the Green Bay Packers. The Packers GM realized that he was probably the best receiver on the list, and it gets a little bit thin when we get out of the first round here in terms of what you want. These receivers can offer that versatility, and they're likely just elite at one part of their game. So when it comes to the Texans, wide receiver is a big need, but so is their offensive line. Guard, defensive tackle, cornerback. We can go in a lot of positions here. We're going to say they take Greg Zabel. He's probably the best offensive lineman left here. He can play multiple positions for them, and he can help out a young quarterback who needs a lot of help, and that was sacked quite a bit when they came to that Kansas City game in the playoffs. Matthew Stafford here is back with the Los Angeles Rams. They need a tight end, tackle, linebacker. Alaric Jackson, Joe Noteboom are headed for free agency. The Rams sign one of them or draft another protector for Matthew Stafford, so that's important. But it's paramount they get a swing tackle or a starting right tackle. They have a lot of people on their line who are on expiring deals, and now they have this 2-year restructured deal with Matthew Stafford. They need to go ahead and make sure they can protect him. So we're going to say they are very high on Membu, and they go ahead and take another tackle. They're a little bit of a run on offensive linemen towards the latter bit of the draft here, and that's likely what's going to happen, guys. When it comes to offensive linemen, they're picked a little bit early in the first round just due to the fifth round option that they get. And pickings get slim when it comes out of the first round and you're picking towards the bottom of the crop. So sometimes you're taking a little bit of a reach on a premium position. Malachi Starks fits the Baltimore Ravens need at corner, and they need a wide receiver here as well. They need to help out Lamar Jackson. They also need help on the offensive line. So, longtime starter Ronnie Stanley at left tackle. He's due to hit the open market in the spring. And the team found a right tackle with Rosengarten with a 2024 second round pick, but they're probably looking to pick up another offensive lineman as well. And that's why the Rams just stole the one right in front of them with Membu. So, what do the Ravens do now? They take a premier player like Malachi Starks, who they can use anywhere in their defense. Starks tested extremely well, and I don't think the Ravens hesitate when it comes to drafting best player available, and he is a glaring one right there at the top of our list. Detroit Lions here have needs at edge. They have a big injury to edge defender Aiden Hutchinson, and Marcus Davenport's forced the Lions to trade for Zadarius Smith midseason. And getting another young pass rusher is very, very crucial for them. Michael Williams is somebody that's on the list. Nick Skirden is definitely a conversation to be had with his production, but I think this Georgia defender coming in is somebody that they'll pick up and they'll enjoy having Aiden Hutchinson coming back from his injury to his ankle there when he broke it last year against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Washington, they just fixed their need at wide receiver with this Debo Samuel trade that they had. So they traded a fifth round pick for Debo Samuel. They take a $20 million, cap hit to bring him on into the team. Ultimately, what does it do? It makes their team better. Debo Samuel makes Jaden Daniels better, so they have a glaring need here to help him out at the tackle position and possibly an edge or cornerback. So they have really their ability to pick the best player on the board right now. And for the Washington Redskins, we're just going to go down the list here and see who's left. The way that PFF has their stack is a little bit odd compared to some other websites, but they need edge, they need corner. Siobhan Revel could be another one that Dan Quinn looks at. but we're going to go ahead and say that they go and take their edge. Nick Skirden, lots of production at Texas A&M, and he could possibly end up being better than Shamar Stewart. He had a better season when it came to last year. I think Stewart looks like he's the better quote unquote athletic prospect, but maybe Dan Quinn sees something in Skirden's production and he shores up that defensive edge position right there. Bills are on the clock here. They need a wide receiver. They need their defensive line help as well, and linebackers. So for me as the Bills GM, I'm going to look at you. Look at you in the eyes as Bills fans and say, what do we need? We need help stopping the run. Jihad Campbell can do that, but I think Derek Harmon, he's being compared to Chris Jones. Fantastic pick here in terms of the way the board's dropping. As a few of these teams and as acting GM as these teams as we get into the 20s, I'm extremely happy with the way the picks went. I'm extremely happy with how my boards have gone down, and I think I'm getting a lot of value even when it comes to Dan Quinn getting Skirtin at 29, Derek Harmon coming into the Bills at 30. Michael Williams being that replacement for Aiden Hutchinson on the other side at 28. Ravens feeling fantastic about getting Malachi Starks at 27, another corner they can add and move around just like they did Kyle Hamilton. And Rams fans are extremely happy with Membu, somebody who can help them protect Stafford. I think the Hampton pick is great as well. It helps the Minnesota Vikings continue their play action passing with one of the best wide receivers in the class, Justin Jefferson, in the NFL, sorry. And now when we come to the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles, our last two picks here in the draft, what are they left with? Kansas City needs help at tackle. They're going to franchise tag the right tackle, it looks like. They need help at defensive line, and they need help at linebacker. I think Jihad Campbell fits them perfectly. Nick Bolton's set up to be a free agent, and this is a perfect pick for Andy Reid to continue him building his defense in order to make Patrick Mahomes successful by not having to do too much on the other side of the ball. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl winners are left at pick number 32. Wide receivers in need here as well. Edge is a need. Nolan Smith was more productive in year two, but Josh Sweat and Zach Bond are headed for free agency. Likely they'll throw a bag at Zach Bond and try to re-sign him, but they need to find people on the edge to help them here. And they have some options. So let's just go through what we have left here. At wide receiver, I think we're wiped pretty clean. It doesn't look like they'd take that in the first round. Tight end, Loveland's left here. That could be an option, but it's not a need for them. When we go to interior offensive line, I think we're wiped a little bit clean there as well. Some of these tackles could play offensive line. Josh Connerly Jr., remember him getting bodied by Mike Green when it came to the Senior Bowl. That's an option. They could go in that direction. I don't think there's enough value for them to do that. So let's look at the cornerback position. Trey Amos is an option here. Maxwell Hairston ran the fastest 40 out of all cornerbacks. So these are two people that they can go with to continue to build that secondary. And in terms of best player on the board, they need edge as well. Izuriku, I'm probably butchering the name here. He had a lot of production, and he could be a steal there at defensive end. And when we look at the rest of the edges left in the draft, Landon Jackson, Prince Umilimayan, I'm not sure how to say his last name either, but I think Donovan ends up being the best pick in the draft here, and he gives them the best value. So that's how our draft ended up, you know, that's how our stack came out. And I like I said, for the last 20 picks, I'm quite happy. I think with the research we've been doing post combine, lots of these picks make sense. Steelers got a steal with Will Johnson at cornerback. Wide receivers gone with Matthew Golden, giving Green Bay that number one option for Jordan Love. Justin Herbert also walks out with a number one option at Ibuka, and then Amarian Hampton's their running back one, gone for the Vikings. We talked about how Baltimore would be extremely happy with Malachi Starks. A team like the Bengals walking away with Tet McMillan at number 17, and then Mike Green going to the Falcons, who really are interested in trading for Micah Parsons right now. So that solves their edge problem. And players like Genty going to the Cowboys, solving that running back issue there as well. And then we have sleeper picks here like Jalen Walker at number 8, James Pierce Jr., the first edge off the board, and Travis Hunter dropping all the way down to number 5. That was this week's episode. We did a fire mock here. Subscribe to our YouTube. Check us out on X. Check us out on IG. Merch is on the way. I'll be dropping that in the next couple of days here, and you guys will see a link for that. We'll go ahead. We'll break down the combine a little bit more next week, and I'll have some more videos out to you guys with some more film sessions. TD Labs out.